Today, instead of you meeting with me in a small group, I'm going to give you some notes for you to add in your notebook over how to convert decimals, fractions, and percents. So we're going to first review change a decimal to a percent. Please remember that you can pause this video anytime that you need to in order to copy things down, or if you need to hear it again, you can always rewind. So to change a decimal to a percent, we need to remember that we need to move the decimal 2 places to the right and add a percent sign. So we're going to do a couple of examples together. So for example, with the number 17, it's a whole number. So I know that when I have a whole number, then I have to add in my decimal after my last digit. I move it 1, 2 places. So, I'm sorry. I totally did that backwards. Let me redo that for you. I have to move it 2 places to the right. So I go 1, 2, which puts my decimal here. So I have to add in 2 zeros. So my number is actually 1700%, because after I move my decimal, I add in my percent sign. For the example 2 3/10, I move my decimal 2 places, so 1, 2. Again, I will have to add in a 0, which gives me 230%. And for the last one, 59 hundredths, I move it 1, 2, and now I have just the whole number 59 written as a percent. The next conversion rule that we want to talk about is changing a percent to a decimal. So this time we're going to get rid of the percent sign and move our decimal 2 places to the left. So we're going to do a couple of examples together. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of my percent sign. And because this is a whole number, I'm going to go 1, 2 places to the left, which gives me 0.79. On this next one, I drop this percent sign first, and then here's my decimal, and I have to go 2 places to the left. So 1, 2, I'm going to have to put a 0 in that space, so my answer is 0.0245. On this next one, again, I drop that percent. I'm going to move 2 places, so 1, 2. I would have to add in that 0, so it's 0.031. And on this last one, I drop my percent. This is a whole number, so I have to add in my decimal and then move it 2 places. So that answer is 0.05. The next conversion rule that we're going to review is change a fraction to a decimal. And this one, we're going to divide the numerator, or the top number, by the denominator, the bottom number. And we're going to do a couple of examples together. So if I have 1/3, my 1 is my dividend, my 3 is my divisor. So how many 3's go into 1? 0. Subtract. Since I have a remainder, I have to add in my decimal. I'm going to go ahead and put it into my answer and add a 0. Pull it down. How many 3's are in 10? There are 3. 3 times 3 is 9. I subtract. I have 1 left over, so I can add in another 0. There are 3. Subtract 1, I can add in another 0. You can see that we are going to have this same thing repeated. So since it repeats, I simply can put a line here. So 1/3 is the same as 0.33 repeating. For 4/5, my 4 becomes my dividend and my 5 becomes my divisor. How many 5's go into 4? 0. I subtract. I have a remainder of 4, so I have to add in my decimal. I'm going to go ahead and put it both in my dividend and in my quotient. I add a 0, pull it down. How many 5's are in 40? There are 8. Subtract. I have no remainder, so I can stop right here. So 4/5 is the same as 0.8. We're going to go on now to the next conversion rule. And you probably already have these in your notebook because this is a review. So our next conversion rule is how to convert a fraction to a percent. the very first thing we're going to do is turn our fraction into a decimal, and then we are going to turn that decimal into a percent by moving the decimal 2 places to the right and then adding that percent sign. So for example, if I have 3/4, the first thing I need to do is divide 3/4 by 4. So how many 4s are in 3? 0. And 0 times 4 is 0. Subtract, I have 3 left over. So that tells me I have to add in a decimal and a 0. How many 4s are in 30? There are 7 4s in 30. That gives me 28. Subtract, I have a 2 left over. Add another 0, pull it down. How many 4s are in 20? 5. And finally, I have a 0 left over, so I have 0.75. So now I have to move my decimal 2 places to the right and add in my percent. So 75% is the same as 3/4. My next conversion rule is to convert a decimal to a fraction. And the rules that I need to follow are: first, put the digits behind the decimal in the numerator, and then use 1 power of 10 for each digit to write the denominator, and you can reduce if you need to. So for example, this is my number, 0.37. So according to my first rule, put the digits behind the decimal as a numerator. So I just need 37, and it goes over a fraction line because that makes it a numerator. And because there are 2 digits, then that tells me I'm using 2 powers of 10, which is 100. Another example is if I have 0.6729, I put 6729 as my numerator, so I need my fraction bar. And because there are 4 digits, I know that there will be 4 zeros. And then on to the last one. How to convert a percent to a fraction. The first thing I'm going to do is convert a percent to a decimal and then a decimal to a fraction. So to convert this percent to a decimal, I drop that percent sign, move my decimal 2 places. So now I have 0.35, and then I go from my decimal to a fraction. So I remember that I take my 2 digits and I put them in my numerator place, and because there are 2 numbers, I can make it 100. And remember that I said that you can reduce if you want. Well, I know that both of these numbers are divisible by 5. So if I wanted to reduce, I can divide them both by 5. 35 divided by 5 is 7, and 100 divided by 5 is 20. So this would be my reduced fraction. And this, or you could just stick with the 35 over 100. After you've finished watching these notes, you are going to go on to 10 marks, and I've actually pushed an assignment to you that says expressing percent. I need you to go on to that. If you score 70% or higher on this 10 marks assignment, then you will not have to meet in small group again. You will just retake the quiz from Friday, only those last 5 questions. If you do not get 70% or higher, then you will meet with me in a small group later this week. So remember to do your best, use your notes, and check your work. Let me know if you have any questions.